It used to be that the public would expect that the emergency services would come and save them. Then we realised that the events were just too big. Disasters, emergencies were just too large. They had too many people needing help. So we've seen that the public taking more responsibility for their own preparedness, putting more of a focus on self-help, more of a focus on helping others, and starting to help the public to understand what they can do for themselves during an emergency.
We are impacted every year by wildfire. We have had huge earthquake impacted the country, big flood, big storm.
There was such a massive movement on social media.
They were helping in a way that they had skills, capacity, local knowledge, a strong local network.
The notion that you can only rely on trained first responders in a disaster is itself a dangerous notion.
I would say it's very important for the maritime authorities or the rescue authorities to look outside the box.
The first responder are always the community.
The world is changing as climate change drives more frequent and severe disasters. The way we respond is being fundamentally reshaped.
If we deal with the people who are forced to live in vulnerable places, if we deal with the people who don't have the political power and the opportunities and resources to deal with the weather and to deal with the climate, then actually human-caused climate change would not affect disasters that much. But of course we're not doing that, which means that when the hurricanes get more intense, when the warmer atmosphere holds more water and so it rains more intensely, yes, people are in trouble.
This journey takes us to the most disaster-affected places on Earth to find the blueprints for this collective action. We spoke with academics, disaster experts, volunteers and community leaders to learn a vital lesson. How can civil society and government work hand in hand together to solve the future challenges of disasters?
As the impact of natural hazards intensifies, we need to think beyond official emergency structures. We can't control the flood or stop the glacier melt, but what we can do is build the right environment. That means enabling informal disaster responses so communities can provide the right help at the right time.
Our investigation begins on the South Island of New Zealand. After the 2011 earthquake devastated Christchurch, thousands of people got stuck in to help.
Arrived in the city out west, jumped in a taxi into town and there wasn't much to see. I got to the CBD and that really changed. The first red zone that we had set up was in the CBD and there was an 11 kilometre fence around the city. And there was about 5,000 residents at the time, plus a little bit of the homeless population. And the impact on them was immediate and lasted for 857 days until the final cordon was removed around the CBD. Spontaneous volunteers were a massive part of the response and recovery in Christchurch, and I think it's been a really important part of how the city's rebuilt. So in the really early days there was lots of different types of spontaneous activity, but over time they sort of aggregated into a couple of smaller, larger groups, but a smaller number. Groups like the Student Volunteer Army and the Farming Army and other examples as well got together to provide all sorts of bespoke services that the government and the council would struggle to do. The community is going to respond to an earthquake or any other disaster, and they should. And our role in the emergency management sector is to enable that, not get in their way, not impose rules that are difficult to follow, but resource it, support it, enable it, provide meaningful taskings, and in many cases just get out of the way. So the historic model had been much more about command and control. The modern contemporary model was about enablement, empowerment, support, and allowing the community to go and look after each other.
Following the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in March 2011, the world watched the response effort unfold. The scale of the impacts across the north coast of Japan was immense.
The force of nature, what we are confronted with, I've never seen anything like that. You're driving there for hours and hours, and just one village after another, you see devastation, you see mountains of debris.
Like, I didn't have words to describe. It's like we were in a car, but we were very quiet after a while. Like, we were just overwhelmed by the fact, like, everything had been washed away.
Washed away cars, collapsed buildings and so forth, and it's very hard to fathom, very hard to come to grips. At some point you recognize, okay, this is something bigger.
I have often seen tsunami scenes in movies and dramas, but it was as if I was watching a scene from a movie. Many volunteers from other countries also came to Japan. I am very grateful to them, and their hard work and dedication still brings tears to my eyes.
Strong organizations that kind of spontaneously formed, that started to take on this kind of coordination task. Big non-profits like Peace Boat, for example, had played a very central role here in 2011 then as well, and very quickly they professionalized. Very quickly they were able to use their international knowledge as well and experience and to bring it to bear in the Japanese context.
Japan has long had a culture of volunteerism. This is not a recent phenomenon. The culture of helping neighbors has existed in Japan for a very long time. I feel that the number of people involved in volunteer activities and the other activities to extend a helping hand has increased, especially after the Great East Japan earthquake.
There were organizations who organized sending volunteers, both in Tokyo and also in the Tohoku. There were groups who accommodate all these people, and so at the beginning, of course, it needed time and experience to get things right. But after a while, I think it runs smoothly.
Very quickly, companies saw this as an opportunity to have people go out there to work for bonding, for team building. And since there was no government, since there were no regulations, since there was no context, since there was almost a clean slate, a lot of experimentation was possible there. Rigid institutions that are risk averse, that subscribe to very rigid procedures. With people who don't want to take responsibility, and then on the other side we want to have innovation and fluid response to an unfolding, unclear situation. So this is a huge challenge here. How do we design a kind of incipient institutional environment that is fluid and liquid enough to allow for experimentation, and that is regulated enough in order to instill a sense of trust on the side of the institutions and officials as well.
Tohoku earthquake really impacted me, and so I started getting involved in many charity works. The disaster itself was really sad event, but it definitely created the basis of volunteers in Japan, especially that continues even now.
The scale seen in Japan was tragically echoed more recently. In 2023, a major quake struck along the Turkey-Syria border. The disaster completely overwhelmed authorities. Peace Boat Disaster Relief used their experience from Japan to assist, alongside local volunteer formations that travelled to the area to help.
So that's the place I have roots to. That's the place I have spent my summers. That's the place I have memories. The first time when I went there, oh man, it was surreal. I think that's the best words to describe it. It was surreal. In total, we lost 11 people from our family. There are no equipments available, there are no trained people around, just everybody's trying to survive. not only it's a big earthquake, but this entire city is gone. I'm not necessarily strong. My skills are not those type of, survival skills. I probably, if I try to go there, I probably would need to be rescued myself. But I know how to bring people together. I know how to network. I have resources. Or I know how to reach other people, the kind of resources other people have.
Further south in Hatay, volunteer Eda is a physiotherapist who relocated to the area from Istanbul after the disaster to help.
At the time of the earthquake, there were a lot of people trying to help, but there wasn't a good coordination. The power was cut, there was no communication and no water. If people knew what to do during that time, things may not have happened the way they did.
We all have some type of superpower, and that superpower, what I meant was, we have got skills, we have got resources, and that's still my belief in life. Every person is good at something. And if we bring all these superpowers, these resources, these skills together, we can create a kind of effect we may not be able to do just by themselves. Locals understand each other better. Locals know the culture. They may not have the resources, and that was our idea. Let's use their local knowledge and bring the kind of resources they need so we can respond to the situation at hand together better.
Of all the places visited, Hatay stands out because the impact was so vast. There will never be enough emergency service workers or volunteers for a disaster like that. Community support is the only way to work through the response. But coordination is critical to avoid clogged roads, reduce duplication, and ensure people who need the help the most can get it.
The lessons from the Grenfell Tower fire in London show the same thing. Community leaders need a seat at the table when organising disaster response and recovery efforts.
The fire started in a fridge in a fourth floor apartment, but very quickly got out of the flat through the window in the kitchen. Sadly, 72 people lost their lives. The community that were impacted by that really came together, showed incredible sort of strength and unity, as well as support to each other. And I was really taken by that, actually, seeing how people listen to each other, cooperate, and can work between the sort of boundaries, listening to what the needs are, and then finding creative solutions to that. As people were waking up to see the news, there was then this sort of massive outpouring of community response. Spontaneously, people had opened churches, mosques, local community centres to provide the immediate assistance people needed. So by the time the local authority had opened their rest centre, much of that need was already being addressed elsewhere. That community and the people within it know what their needs are far better than anybody else from public authorities can do. So it's about being open to listening to them, engaging with them in a meaningful way, so not just hearing and making promises, but actually delivering on that where people ask you to do things. Recovery is such an ongoing process. Typically, in the UK at least, emergency management really doesn't get into the nuances of recovery and needs to put a lot more thought into what recovery really means, who's involved, and what the best ways are of working there. It doesn't lend itself to command and control in the same way as response, and therefore the engagement with communities needs to change in that phase as well.
The 9/11 terrorist attacks reshaped the world forever. The world watched people step up in a crisis.
An eyewitness to what he describes as a twin-engine plane flying into the World Trade Center. It appears to be still embedded inside the building.
It was a very late night for me, the morning of 9/11. I was a fashion designer at the time, and I was working on preparing my collection. my husband woke me and told me to get up and see what was happening, and I was annoyed because I was like, why are you waking me to see this disaster movie? And he said, no, it's real time, this is happening. And I had a mixture of being shocked, sad, and so incredibly indignant and angry that this would happen to my city.
I came out of the subway at Church and Chambers Street and into this world that was utterly unfamiliar. Everything was stopped and people were just frozen in place, and the cars were stopped in the streets, and the people were standing outside their cars, and everybody was looking up. You know, that was really when my life changed.
People were coming and walking up from Lower Manhattan covered with ash, with just vacant looks in their eyes, you know, terror, confusion, or shock, really shock.
There was an outpouring of emotion, there was an outpouring of support, and it manifested itself in spontaneous volunteers just coming.
Literally thousands of people wrapped around Jacob Javits Center waiting to sign up to help. And I walked right up to them and I said, what can I do to help you? And they're like, no, we have it under control. And that's when I met Rosie Velez, an EMT, who just turned to me and said, little girl, what are you doing here? You know, you need to take yourself to somewhere that's safer. And I said, no, I'm here to, you know, share supplies and give you what you need to stay safe. The officials would come to the Jacob Javits Center, look at what we're doing, ask for our official ID, say, who are you? You need to vacate the premises. And we would say, sure, just do us a favor, send whomever's gonna come in and take our position and do what we're doing. Just send them here, we'll train them, and we'll vacate. In the middle of crisis response, you have chiefs, if you will. You have those that are directing on a larger scale, a bigger picture, and then you have a lot of people that want to help. We're trying to encourage ready responders. They're taking one step further to get trained beforehand. They can still volunteer just in time, but now they're equipped with the knowledge. They've assessed their capabilities. They know where they can fit in.
Our approach to disaster response has to progress beyond government-led. We can't expect that government is going to leap into action and save us, because it's not. We have, the community is there. The community wants to help itself, wants to help each other, and what we can't do is let government stand in the way of them.
As the impact of the terrorist attack was realized, the US Coast Guard called for all vessels in the area to help evacuate Lower Manhattan, without a plan prepared for this type of disaster. Ferries, tugboats, and private ships rushed to the scene, transporting more than 500,000 people off Manhattan.
What was really important with the boat evacuation is that the mariners were doing work. They were helping in a way that they had skills, capacity, local knowledge, a strong local network. They had a willingness to be flexible, but they were bringing that expertise to the kinds of activities that they stepped up to do. They mobilized with people around them, got on their boats, and started solving problems in front of them with that mariner perspective. In the initial stages, it was very haphazard, ad hoc. There was a boat, you got on it, you didn't really know where you were going. But there was an organization that began to evolve over those initial hours.
One of the wise decisions that the Coast Guard made was to let the event unfold. So they coordinated it from sort of a loose perspective, but not one that was trying to impose a kind of top-down control over it or to try to take control of every aspect of that event. A key thing that they were able to do was to integrate formal and informal operations. And I think that's central to the leadership that Mike Day and others showed on that day, was the fact that if this wasn't solely a Coast Guard operation, it wasn't solely a police operation, it wasn't solely a fire operation. Even in events that are extremely large, that are unexpected, that are surprising like this, there's room for unscripted, emergent, improvisational, and spontaneous activities. That a disaster doesn't really exist as a thing that you can control, but rather it's a set of activities that you have to understand and be able to participate in as a variety of different players are starting to affect the process.
We have rule number one in disasters, and rule number one is break all the rules. That's the first thing you do. And if one of those is letting people, come out of their homes, they're sitting there, able-bodied people wanting to help. If one of those rules is preventing that, then break that rule and let those folks do it.
When we start thinking about a disaster response, you can kind of think about the best way to approach that as when you have a puzzle. What we see in a disaster is people beginning to work at putting together that puzzle from different spots. At the beginning, there's a lot of uncertainty. We're trying to figure out what's going on. We don't have quite a clear idea about what that disaster is. And as people start coming together and working in their little sections, that picture becomes more clear.
A lot has been learned since 9/11 and the many other disasters discussed. There's been a significant amount of research into informal disaster volunteering. In South America, this has led to the establishment of procedures to establish hubs for informal volunteers and processes for coordinating a community response.
So in 2019, a big tornado, the first tornado, affected Talcahuano, which was previously in 2010 affected by the Chilean earthquake and tsunami. We decided immediately to set up a volunteer reception center with the spontaneous volunteers. They were doing cleaning, debris, sealing the window of the houses that were affected because it was winter. Sometimes there was a duplication of function in the same situation, and this could cause chaos that could happen because so many NGOs didn't want the spontaneous volunteer coming and at the same time that they were doing their work because it could affect insurance issue or their own responsibility at that time. So a coordination in the field was essential because I could see how difficult it is to coordinate different groups working together at the same time. It is important to give also the opportunity to the own community to own the response and the recovery process if this is possible, because they want to do something that create this community resilience and that make them feel that they could contribute as well to the recovery process. So managing a spontaneous volunteer should be something simple and straightforward. We really want, when any disaster strikes, to have the spontaneous volunteer deploy as soon as possible. So if we could facilitate this process beforehand, during the preparedness stage, such as identifying what would be the potential spontaneous volunteer who might arrive, to have the identification process before, this could be easy for them to deploy after the disaster. In the 2019 wildfire in Valparaiso, the people set up a volunteer reception center inside of a car. And that car was going through different hills to see how the volunteers were working on, what they needed. They were providing this PPE, also some information about the deployment. So it was, we call it a mobile VRC, Volunteer Reception Center. So this is an example of how flexible should be the spontaneous volunteer management process.
The biggest driver is always a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of connectedness. If we consider community mobilisation, we also need to rethink what formal disaster volunteering looks like. Many volunteer emergency services across Iceland, Sweden and Norway don't receive government funding. They rely on community support. They are truly embedded as a community organisation. Even in the highly regulated rescue space, there is a need for everyday people with everyday skills to lend a hand.
So the Swedish Sea Rescue Society is 2,500 volunteer sea rescuers. We have 74 stations and about 270 boats. And it's the backbone of sea rescue in Sweden. Luckily, there's not that many mass rescue situations. We think about the large ones like Estonia or Costa Concordia, cruise ships or ferries with people and cars and so forth. It doesn't happen that often, but it's not a question of if, it's when. My first mass rescue, I would say, major operation was in the Central Mediterranean, working together in collaboration with Doctors Without Borders. It came to a real shock for me. Hundreds of people after a capsized boat fighting for their lives, actively drowning in front of me. And I had to fight every instinct I had to have some sort of lifeguard moment where I jumped off the boat into the water and swam around and rescue swam and pulled people, because I would not be sitting here today if I had done that. Instead, we had to develop different techniques of saving a large amount of people in the water. And that includes throwing everything that's floatable, life jackets and different types of rescue tools into the water, launching fast rescue boats. And there's a lot of techniques today that didn't exist back in 2015. You know, you have a large number of people in distress, life-threatening, and the resources aren't enough. So no one agency, no one ship or helicopter, whatever, can solve that problem. So you have to have a natural cooperation and hopefully a prepared plan that you've talked about it long before the accident comes. And what I see in the future as well as now, that more and more organizations, maritime organizations, are looking and opening up to others and not just looking in their own little silo that we're here to solve a problem. No, we can't in those large-scale disasters. With climate change, changing weather patterns, extreme rainfall, fires, earthquakes, and natural disasters like that too, you have to be so many different organizations to be able to solve the problem. So I'm very hopeful in the maritime sphere that they're looking outside of their boats. They're looking at, how does the local hospital fit in? How does the Red Cross? How do volunteers with whatever specialty that they do? Are there people that can deliver blankets and coffee and all that kind of stuff? It takes a village. It takes a city of SAR and SAR support systems to take care of an accident and all the people that you save. Don't just focus on SAR services. What are all the available assets? It can be a local dive club. It can be not Boy Scouts, but different types of civil protection that know how to do, like, help other people, and especially large numbers, because you may not have the amount of people that you need.
Finally, we look at the United States. Similar disaster volunteering organisations here don't rely on government support, but recruit and train volunteers to help. The majority of disaster recovery work in the US is undertaken by faith-based groups. A lot of this training is on the job, allowing people to quickly skill up and deploy during a crisis. We stayed with an Amish family in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, to understand how these faith-based groups can work together. It's a powerful model of self-reliance and coordinated care.
A large majority of our constituents who support Mennonite Disaster Service, they're not all Mennonite. We have Amish, we have Grofdale, and what makes MDS work is that we aren't asking our volunteers to agree on how they live out their faith. We're not asking them to agree on baptism or how to have communion or what clothing they should wear or what technology they should engage with or not. We're asking them to agree on helping to get disaster survivors back home, whether it's Islamic, Jewish, Buddhist, it runs the gamut. And I think what motivates all of those organizations is the desire to help those in need. We need each other, and this is one place where it's very easy to need each other and to work together. So in the US, the government does not have the capacity to do disaster recovery and response. There are not government agencies who that is their task. MDS's gift to that effort is skilled labor, skilled volunteers who can do the building, Others, they do the case management to vet the homeowner to make sure that they are the appropriate recipient, or to help with funding, to supply the funds necessary to purchase building materials. Our main focus is on long-term recovery. We help homeowners who, without our help, couldn't otherwise get back home. There is a place for those unaffiliated volunteers, and I think they have value. I think the thing that they need, anybody who wants to volunteer in that way needs to make sure that when they enter into a disaster zone, they know who they're going to talk to. Like, go with a plan. Go with, I'm going to go find Red Cross, or I'm going to go find an organization, and not just show up and expect a traumatized community to be able to find work for you. That would be my caution.
Australia hasn't yet seen the scale of disasters in places like Turkey, Japan, Christchurch, or New York City. But that's not to say it won't happen. The key consideration when planning for major disaster response needs to be the role of the community and enabling people to help.
As we've seen, the world's biggest crises aren't solved by top-down authority alone. They are solved by the spontaneous, coordinated efforts of ordinary people. That is the legacy we must build on.
There's going to be more people that come. If there's going to be more emergencies, then there's going to be more volunteers. This is not something that you can avoid.
Spontaneous volunteers are an unavoidable phenomenon. We will have them show up even if we want it or not.
We will have fewer and fewer people being able to volunteer and to help. We'll have larger populations who are exposed and who are vulnerable to disasters as well. And I think it's very, very crucial to think about how we deal with this kind of emergent situation.
People now understand that the scale of modern disasters mean that the community has to mobilise.
Many of the old protocols might no longer be able to fully respond to the emergent scenarios that are coming up. So how can we design for institutional learning, emergent learning in community empowerment, community resilience, collective creativity, and so forth?
Over time, we'll all become emergency managers to some degree, whether you're looking after your family or your business or your community or your sports group or your cultural group or your church group. Everyone's going to have a role to play.
We all have to rely and work together to do what we do. None of us can do this alone. We have to collaborate in order to get folks back home.
It is us learning how to be more resourceful. It is us learning how to be resilient. It is us learning how to find solutions, how to get together, how to create this culture of collaboration. Figure out what's needed, what type of resources, what type of expertise, what type of support. When you figure that out, you can communicate better. When you communicate better, the help arrives more easily.